Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at a topic that is very dear to my heart: how human resources can entrench corporate governance in the organization. And to do justice to this topic is no stranger to this prestigious platform. Dr. Femi Mosaku Johnson will be facilitating. But just in case there is somebody who is new to this platform and new to Dr. Femi, I'd like to read about his profile in brief so that we can pay attention and listen with rapt attention. Dr. Olufemi Mosaku Johnson is a major corporate governance, learning, and innovative business expert in Nigeria. He is the founder and pioneer registrar CEO of the Association of Corporate Governance or Professionals of Nigeria. He is currently the chairman, Hero Advisory and Governance Service. He is a graduate of public administration and has a master's in personnel psychology from University of Ado-Ekiti. He also has a PhD in organizational leadership from NWU, Florida, USA. He is a chartered secretary and administrator. In addition to this, he is a chartered management practitioner, chartered personnel management practitioner, and chartered economist. His work experience culminating in a successful tenure for 10 years in Law Union and Rock Insurance, and 8 years with Lagos State Government, where he served with the Lagos State Public Service Staff Development Center. Also, he spent 5 years at the Nigerian Institute of Management. He subsequently moved to the Institute of Directors of Nigeria, where he pioneered and led the Directors Development Department with a AAA rated Directors Learning in Nigeria and in the United Kingdom. He is a member and board of trustees and secretaries of the International Aeronautics College. He is the secretary to the board, Medical Ethics and Governance Initiative. He is a board member, Foundation for Value Transformation. He is a committee member, Lagos State Post-Service Welfare Council. In addition to this, he is a technical consultant to the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as an examiner at the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administration of Nigeria. He is an IFC certified corporate governance board leadership trainer with South Africa and the Center for Management Development accredited trainer. He is an alumni of Lagos Business School, School of Media and Communication. Dr. Femi is a published author and is also royalty. He's from the Paramount ruling house in Aguda, Ogba, Lagos, and happily married with children. I also have information that tonight is not at his usual base, which is Lagos. He's joining us from the ancient city of Kano. Let's receive to the virtual lecture, Dr. Femi Mosaku Johnson. You have the floor, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm so glad to be with you wherever you are this evening. It's going to be an enthralling time that we are going to spend together to look at this very, very important topic. It is very, very dear to me, to my heart as well. How HR can entrench corporate governance in, in the organization. So this is very, very important. First of all, we need to look at what is HR, then what is corporate governance. So we need to conduct a marriage ceremony between the two disciplines. Then from there, we begin to see how they can be able to actually work together. Today now, there is a serious linkage between the work of HR and corporate governance. Before, it was not there. It was not expected that whoever that is in HR position need to basically understand the components, the tenets of corporate governance. But now it is very, very critical. very, very important, very, very necessary. So this is the opening shot. I put this together as opening shot for us to be able to get to see what basically we are going to be discussing in bullet form. The role of HR has been seen as peripheral when it comes to corporate governance, and that is how it has been. And tonight it is novel to examine how HR can make meaningful contribution in a more strategic way to corporate governance within the organization, and also to look at corporate governance requirements, how it can basically make whoever that is in HR to get to understand the component of it, the content of it, and so on. Then after the corporate governance disaster of companies in the time past, we had a lot of companies that were not basically, were not able to stand the test of time. I can list 50 in Nigeria that basically went to the burial ground as soon as their owners left, and so on. And not only that, some of them, the owners were alive when they left. In the 40s, there was Penny Bank and a number of banks. Those banks that were started at that time were 5, and they died within first 5 years. Penny Bank died the same year that it was created. National Bank died 5 years after it was created, and so on. So, and if there is strong HR, there could be some measure of structure that will make this organization to stand, especially the component of succession planning, which is very, very, very lacking, and so on. So these are some of the issues that we see. You can see, even recently, you have Ekene Dilichukwu, Chanchaga Airline, Albarca, and so many of those organizations. And of course, you discover that because there is no structure, and ways to put the structure in that place, it is HR. And these are corporate governance issues. We are going to see it as we are going. And also the issue of cultural change to the leaders of those organizations. This also has to do with the issue of resistance by the leaders to change, and also to ensure that corporate governance is instituted in all these organizations. And without the supportive role of HR, it is very, very difficult for this organization to continue to be sustainable. So, and without credibility, HR often has trouble getting a foot in the organization, as it were. And it has come to a situation where HR is asked to face the issue of staff. They are not expected to be bothered about the issue of structure, the issue of governance, the issue of sustainability of organization, and so on. So let's first of all look at the definition of corporate governance. What does it basically entail? Corporate governance itself. I say it refers to the relationship among the board of directors, top management, and shareholders in determining the direction and performance of the corporation. So corporate governance has to do with performance, the direction that the organization will take, and the way that the organization will ensure that it is a sustainable organization. So it's a relationship among the board, among the top management, shareholders, and so on. So that relationship is the same way you have the relationship with government. When you have 3 arms of government, the House of Assembly, that's Senate and Rep, you have justice system, that's judiciary, then you have the presidential. And the most important part of this connotation is that there must be checks and balance. The same way when you come to organization, it's the same way, it's the same thing that the corporate governance want to ensure, that there is no absolute power anywhere. So we are going to see as we are going. And also let's revisit the definition. Let's try to revisit the definition of corporate governance again. Corporate governance is traditionally thought of as the way in which enterprises are directed and controlled. You can see that those two things or those two words are very, very important there. One, directed, the other one, controlled. What is that good car without a good brake? And that is the most important part of business, that it has to be controlled. Who is to control it? The control comes from the board. Control comes from the board, as it were. It's like if you don't have a board, it's like you are playing a football match and there's no referee. The board, they are the referee. They are the one who will control, who will direct. This is the way that the match is supposed to go, and so on. Recently, this definition has been enhanced to include a system of rules, practices, procedures by which decisions in enterprise are made, and how the controllers, who are the controllers? The managers, the top executive of the organization, or in some cases, they call them directors, are held accountable for whatever they do in that organization. So, operationalizing governance. So you look at it, each of the three main components of the governance definition is unbundled into 7 subcomponents. So all that I've been trying to lay down in terms of definition is now unbundled. What is it talking about? 7 subcomponents. 1, voice and external accountability. External accountability. Who is to do that? HR. Who is to do that? Auditors and so on. So we are going to see just a position of all this. Then, of course, the second one, political stability, lack of violence and terror. Quality regulatory framework is very, very critical. Government effectiveness, control of corruption. It's very, very critical. Staff welfare and well-being. The question is, what is the difference between welfare and well-being when it comes to HR? Then the rule of law. So these are laid down issues that are very, very critical in corporate governance. And you can, of course, see that the issue of staff welfare is there. The issue of staff well-being is there. Who is to ensure that that is done in a proper manner? HR, and so on. And other areas also are very, very critical to corporate governance, to HR, like quality regulatory framework. Is the HR that will say, oh, we have not done this compliance system, we are lagging behind, and some of those issues that are very, very pertinent. Now, challenges and control environment. Before we move to the marriage ceremony between corporate governance and human resources management. So let's look at the challenges and control environment. What are those challenges? Internal control procedures. It's very, very critical in organization. Internal control. Why many organizations are basically not doing well? Fiscally, financially, it's because of the fact that internal control procedure is not well laid out. Risk management framework has to be looked into. Disaster recovery and business continuity, very, very critical. Media management technique in use. Staffing and compensation management. Then business stability, procedure for sustainability of the business. So these are challenges and issues that relate to control of business. So we are going to see what is the issue about HR in all this? How do the HR play any role in all this? Because corporate governance basically is laid down to promote the efficient use of scarce resources. Basically, resources are scarce from the day the world began. Resources are scarce. So how do we use it in an efficient manner? Secondly, to promote the trust of investors. Trust is very, very critical in investment. Trust is very, very critical. Without trust, investment is going to enter into a doldrum. Investment cannot thrive in the atmosphere of violation of trust. T-R-U-S-T. When you remove T when you write down trust, when you remove T, what do you have? You have rust. So what we have in most places now is rust. So there has to be promotion of trust. Okay, we are going to other countries. We are asking them to come and invest in Nigeria. The other day, I was invited to speak at our Sources Association of Nigeria and so on. And people are wondering, why is it that our professionals cannot consult in other countries and so on? I say it's the crisis of trust. We are not trusted. Everybody have come to see us as scammers. So we have to get that very clearly. Then, of course, good corporate governance has a positive link to economic development and good corporate performance of the organization. If the corporate governance is installed in every organization, is installed adequately in organization, there is likelihood of good corporate performance in that particular organization, and there will be continuity, there will be sustainability of that particular organization. Then funds also flows to entities which are seen to have internationally accepted standards of corporate governance. No investors will bring their fund to organization that there is no structure of corporate governance. So this is very, very pivotal for us to be able to move forward. So we now move to very, very critical issue about corporate governance. The tenet of corporate governance, we call it FAT. We call it FAT, F-A-R-T. The first one, fairness. Fairness, this is very, very critical in business, in life, in family, everywhere, in nation building, fairness. Then you have accountability. And of course, you know, we lack so much in this area. When it comes to accountability, we are not there. You can imagine billions, trillions are being signed by governors of 36 states of Nigeria every month, and they are not expected to give account. Of course, they say there is one they call security votes and so on. It goes to them about, I mean, I can't even lay down what it means, but billions every month is going to governors in Nigeria, and there is no accountability. This can never happen, even in Sodom and Gomorrah. It can never happen. You have accountability problem. Then issue of responsibility. Are we responsible? Are we responsible enough for people to say, okay, this will put you in charge of this. Can we get good rest and say, okay, somebody is there, let's go and rest. So what are we looking at again? Transparency. This transparency is the parent of the three that I listed above. Where do we have it? So these are the 4 values of good corporate governance. And once it lacks everywhere, there's no way you can basically ensure that that organization will be sustainable. So HR must see to this, and we are going to tell us what are the areas that HR must look out for. But this is very, very important, because if anything violates this in organization, it will affect everybody, including the HR and its paraphernalia. It will affect everybody. So fact is very, very important for them to look at. So corporate governance is a dynamic process, and it is evolving continually. For now, it has no limits. It has no limit, it has no boundary. So it goes on, and it enters into every phases of organization now. So, but looking at corporate governance in Nigeria, are we basically ready to practice corporate governance? because you must follow the rules, you must follow the laws, and you must follow the regulations. In Nigeria, there is a code of corporate governance. We worked on it. It was signed in 2019. Before we had code of corporate separated, CBN as its own, stock exchange as its own, central bank as its own, NICOM insurance as its own, pension commission also has. But in 2019, we came together and we harmonized all these several codes, and we put it to one. And Nigeria has a code of corporate governance in a document. But the problem is that in our own case, you just have it as a guide, as a minimum standard. It is not something that can be enforced seriously in law. And that is the problem. We are in South Africa sometimes, and we're speaking with Mervyn King. Mervyn King is the grandfather of corporate governance in Africa. And he told us that in Nigeria, you only have dog that barks. But he said in South Africa, when it comes to corporate governance, he said dogs ear bites. What does that show us? It shows us that our own code is just like a guide, but in their own, you must comply. You must comply. Otherwise, you are going to face the full wrath of law if you don't comply with what they have over there. So our own is a different situation, but we are still working. We are still trying to ensure that all these are basically enforceable in law, so that everybody can be guided. And that's why you see today people start businesses. Somebody left a bank, he now founded a finance house, collected a lot of depositors' fund to the tune of over 2 billion, and he disappeared with the money of the depositors. And he went to one country, I can't remember the name of the country. I tried to find the name in the map of the world. I cannot even find the country. And they told Nigeria government that they will not give the guy citizenship of that country. But when they see the fund that the guy brought to their country, of course, they gave the boy citizenship. And now even Interpol cannot even arrest the boy. The boy left with the money, with the wife and the daughter, and disappears. And why do we have that situation? There is no structure of corporate governance. If there is a structure of corporate governance, there will be checks, there will be balance. Nobody benefit. Yes, we are looking at the benefits of good governance, good reputation. It gives you client retention, and of course, it increases your client. On the long run, it helps the organization to do well. Fairness in lending practices, transparency in reporting, protection of assets comes into place, value creation for shareholders and stakeholders. You see, it's part of good governance to protect the value, the fund of the shareholders and so on, to protect the stake of the people that are involved in that particular business. It's very, very important. So these are some of the benefits, and so everybody would like to deal with honest organization. And the underground value of corporate governance is honesty. Is honesty. So it is very, very important. And that is one of the things that we lack and so on. One of the things that makes a country to move from impoverished situation to great nation is honesty. Incidentally, in most cases, we lack it in some cases, and so on. Now, what are the parties to corporate governance? Which are the parties to corporate governance? Shareholders, those that own the organization, those are the shareholders. And then the directors, the guardians of the company's asset. For the shareholders, the directors, the top management, they are the one that watch the asset of the organization. They ensure that the investment of the shareholders does not go down the drain, and the managers who also use the company assets. So corporate governance has 5 distinct dimensions. If you want to install it in the organization, it has 5 distinct dimensions. And we are going to see how HR comes into all this. Those are the next things that we begin to see now. What has HR got to do with all these factors? So we are going to see it. So the distinct dimensions include the processes. Processes must be seen to be transparent, to be done in such a way that it can ensure accuracy of figure, accuracy of skill, talent, and so on. Then look at the customs of the organization. What is the custom? What is the tenet of the organization? What is the culture of that organization? Then policies. What are the policies that organization has in place? When we are talking about HR policy, we are talking about corporate governance issue. When we are talking about staff policy, we are talking about corporate governance issues, and so on. So, and a lot of other policies that you have in organization. Then the procedures. What are the procedures that is laid down in actually carrying out the functions of that organization? Then the governing body. What is the role of the governing body? Which is the governing body? The board. The role of the board in organization cannot be overemphasized. In the last couple of weeks, I've instituted 2 board for organization. I mean, we have set up board for organization. Why do they need board? You wonder, how can a thriving business ask you to constitute a board for them? It is very, very important, because you need to understand what we call ask question. The board will bring some dimension of experience, dimension of connection, dimension of contact, dimension of ideas, dimension of counsel. And these are some of the issues that are very, very critical, that people will think, oh, let's set up a board. 2 heads are better than 1. And when you have more heads that are basically better, that are good, you make the organization to run at a full speed. So that's why we have all this. Then the issue of co-determination. Should employees serve on board? That's another issue. Should employees serve on board? In most cases, it is the MD of the organization, or CEO, that represents the management, or that represent the company for that matter, in the board. But in some cases, we have seen a situation now that they have started to nominate some people to the board. Apart from company secretary, in some cases, we have seen that HR directors and so on are nominated to the board for them to be able to see from the angle of staff, from the angle of welfare, from the angle of well-being of the organization, and so on. So that one goes to that extent. So what are the trends in corporate governance? What are the trends? Board will shape the company strategy. Institutional investors will be active on the board. Shareholders demand the directors and management hold stock also, so that they can be part owners of the business, and so on. More involvement of non-affiliated outside directors. And that is what the Code of Corporate Governance said, that you must have more NEDs, who are the non-executive directors, than the directors that are within the organization. You must have more outside directors. You have also provision for independent directors. Those are the things that basically are laid down in the Code of Corporate Governance of Nigeria. Then also the issue of representation of women. and minorities. It's very, very critical to corporate governance. In corporate governance, you don't talk about issues that relates to, okay, you have board, you bring your board, how many women are in your board? What we are saying now, you must have equal number of women and men in your board today. And that's what we are saying, because you cannot dispense with the quality, with the kind of experience and perspectives that women will bring to the board. And I used to say that if you have a board, because I work with board, I constitute board, I train board, I evaluate board. And when I'm looking into board and I see that there are, a percentage of men, there are two on the high side and women, I will ask question. Because I used to say that you have a board and you have only men there in that board. It's like you are a bird flying with one wing. How far can you go? And so on. So corporate governance is very, very critical when it comes to the issue of representation from women and from other minority groups. So it is very, very important to us for us to see this. Then other trends is that board evaluating individual directors, there should be board evaluation. Code of corporate governance says that on an annual basis, organizations should evaluate the board. It can be done inside-wise. That is, there could be people who have experience in this area within the organization that can do it, and so on. Then, of course, you have the code says every 2 years you must invite outside consultants to evaluate your board. That is what the code says. Incidentally, we discovered that there are not too many people that can evaluate board in our country. I have to go to South Africa to learn how to evaluate board and so on. And of course, we have started to train some people in that particular area as well now. I think ICSAN organized a program for us to train other people in that particular area, so that, of course, we have a good number of people that are qualified to basically evaluate board. So because it is a very, very key requirement in the Code of Corporate Governance in Nigeria. And we learned that a time is coming that the CAC, in your annual report, in your annual return, you have to show that you have actually have your board evaluated and so on. Then the other one is to have a smaller board. Then, of course, we'll split the role of chairman and CEO. It is now a taboo for somebody to say, I am chairman and CEO. I mean, when you say it in a corporate governance environment, we look at you with terrible, somehow it is laughable. It is laughable. It is ludicrous when somebody say, I'm a chairman and CEO. You don't say it today because there has to be separation of this power. So if you want to be chairman, you are chairman. If you want to be CEO, you are CEO. So the position is totally separated. So you have chairman of the organization. It's different from CEO. You can't combine the two together. It's like you are a referee and you're a player at the same time. So it does not work. Then shareholders may begin to nominate board members as well. Then society expects board to balance profitability with social needs of society. That's corporate social responsibility. So those are the trends that you have today. Now, the role of HR in all this that we are talking about, the role of HR management responsibilities. What are those responsibilities? Involve getting things accomplished through and with others in order to achieve corporate objectives. So HR management responsibility also are multidimensional and are oriented towards the welfare of the staff in that organization. So you look at the role of HR, and we are going to see how the role of HR actually enters into issues that relate to corporate governance. And of course, I've always said that the HR managers and so on, they must be now getting themselves involved in the structure, in the issue that relates to structure, in the issue that relates to business partnership, in the issue that relates to business research, in the issue that relates to business strategic partnership now, which is very, very important. And all these components are components of corporate governance. So we are going to see how all these marry themselves together. So HR, corporate governance, and employee connection. Commitment, connection is equal to production. Who ensures this in organization? Who ensures commitment? Who ensures connection? What does this mean? This is corporate governance issue, but this is how HR comes into it. When you are recruiting a staff, the HR must ensure that this staff is going to be committed to the organization. You say, how will the HR know? He or she has to know. He or she must conduct a test to find out the commitment level of this person that is coming in. And once they come in as well, HR must see to their commitment in that organization. HR must see to their connection, that they are connected to that organization. So many people are not connected. So many people are not commitment. Commitment in organization is a corporate governance issue. If you bring a staff that is not committed, it's a corporate governance issue. If you bring a staff that is not connected to other staff, to the culture of the organization, these are corporate governance issues. Now, who brings the staff that is not committed? It is the HR. Who ensures that the staff are connected through coaching, counseling, and mentoring? It is HR. And when this is done very well, you have increase in production. Coaching on the job for the present, counseling for the past, for what he did in the past that he didn't do well, mentoring for the future, for, okay, in 10 years time, in 15 years time, this is what is going to happen to this particular staff. So all these are issues that relate to HR, and so on. It connects to corporate governance. And so we are going to see it. We are going to see it. Then the last one here is competence. So who ensures this? Now, if you put this together, you have good production. And that is what borders corporate governance. What borders corporate governance is that at the end of the day, you have good profit, and you do it in a legal way. You do it in ethical manner. Corporate governance is basically endemically concerned about ethics and so on. So this is very, very important. So HR, through the people they are bringing in, making them to be competent. How are they going to make them to be competent? By those three interventions: by coaching, by counseling, by mentoring, in some instances by training. So HR will ensure these three, and you have productivity. Without these three, you cannot have productivity. HR are the people that are bringing in people. Are the people they are bringing in, are they competent? Are they committed? Are they connected? Then HR need to ask themselves, ask question. When they are bringing in anybody, ask question. A, attitude. What is the attitudinal concept of this person? Then K, knowledge. What knowledge does he have? What experience has he gained over the years, and so on? And no, S, skill. I say ask, ASK, attitude, skill, and knowledge. It is the pivot of HR to ensure this. Now, when you bring this together, then you are now having a corporate. You are now having organization that is productive. You are now having organization that is moving forward. So HR has a very, very important role to play in ensuring that you have competent, you have committed, and you have connected staff. And from there you have. So these are corporate governance issues that is basically made available by HR. So HR should ensure that these are in place in organization. HR, they have separated role from company secretary. They have separated role from finance and account department, and so on. But because of their key role in organization, they must ensure this. They must remind whoever that is supposed to take care of this area, they must ensure that they remind them constantly. the board is aware of its mandate. HR must know what is the mandate of the board. You cannot just have a board. It's like you have the board of Nigeria now. Of course, the board of Nigeria is the Senate and House and so on. Do they know their mandate? And of course, you know that Nigeria has a lot of state-owned organization, SOE, state-owned enterprises. They have boards, and we discovered that I don't even have a knowledge of what they are supposed to be doing, apart from allowance and so on. So the HR ensures that board is aware of their mandate. Board understand the company strategy. They ensure that board understand the company strategy and are aware of the risks associated with them. HR will also try on counseling basis, advisory basis, to ensure that directors are aware of their fiduciary duties to the organization. Also, that board monitors management performance. Also, that board composition is a healthy mix of expertise and so on. Not only expertise, gender issue also, because these are human beings. These are issues that relates to human beings. So everything that relates to human beings, even within the board and so on, connects to HR now. Before it was not there. Before nobody demand it. I'm going to lay down some things that before they were not there, but now it is compulsory that everybody must have this. As HR personnel, you must understand some of these components. Then number 5, the board composition is healthy and does not present a conflict of interest. This is very, very important. When we talk about conflict of interest, the pivot of it is HR to ensure that, they are not bringing in people that basically have no idea of what the work is all about. I'm going to have a program with one organization now. Many people, they say they bring into that organization, they are not qualified to be in that place. They are not qualified. Of course, they came in through the back door. And where is HR? And this is corporate governance issue as well. Director receive requisite orientation. When you have directors and they don't understand what it means to run a directorial role, did not understand. It is the HR that will organize orientation for them. It is HR that will ensure that they know what they are doing. If you don't know, you cannot flow. Then the board meets frequently and have required access to information and personnel. So this is very, very important. This is very, very important. Then the protocol and conduct of all meeting. The protocol and conduct of a meeting is honored. So this is basically the work that HR supposed to know, and they're supposed to understand. So look at the number 1 to 8. Before, it was not there. It was not there before. But now, this is the situation now. This is the situation. Before, nobody bothers HR about the mix of expertise, training of orientation of board and all those things. Of course, who is going to do the training? Who understands the connotations of board and so on? It is the HR that should be able to bring the people that will carry out some of this function. Now, let's look at the executive leadership and strategic vision. So executive leadership, when we bring this to place, we are talking about a situation where you have leaders who are directing the activities toward accomplishing the goal of the organization. Then you have the strategic vision of the organization, the description of what the company is capable of becoming. Who is going to ring this bell all the time? Everybody will forget about the vision of the organization. We are talking about big or small organization. It is the HR that will make the leader to understand, that will ring it at the ear of the leader, that this is where we are going. This is our corporate goal. This is our strategic aim. This is where we want to go, and so on. And they should be able to look at it. Executive leadership and strategic vision. Now, how will the HR also assist the CEO in some of these endeavors, in some of these attributes? How will the HR coming in all this, the CEO articulates a strategic vision for the organization. CEO presents a role for others to identify with and follow. CEO communicates high performance standard and show confidence in followers' ability to meet these standards. Now, when you put all this together, we are talking about the issue of achieving strategic vision. HR has a role to play in this to ensure that organizations actually focus on their strategic vision. Then the issue of performance, whose task is to ensure that everybody actually meet up with their performance. And of course, it is very, very critical in organization today that everybody must be contributing. It is HR that should be able to know in terms of HR data analytics and so return on investment of each staff of the organization. So when CEO communicates high performance standard and some of those things, who is to ensure that all these are carried out? It is the HR. So now let's look at the evolving role of HR in corporate governance. Evolving role, the role that were not there before, but they are now coming out, especially in well-structured organizations, well-structured environment, where HR basically are now given some sort of space to operate and to actually contribute to what the organization is trying to bring out. Evolving role of HR. One, compliance demands grow with your business. Compliance demands. HR basically have a date, have a diary of every compliance requirement that the organization needs to meet. And they ensure that they remind those that are concerned, they ensure that those that are concerned actually carry out those assignments. And why are they doing this? To reduce legal problems. When you violate or you fall short in your compliance demand, then of course there could be some litigation and so on. So HR comes in that area also. Then HR also is now bothered about the issue of operations safety within the organization, HSC, and some of those areas that before, of course, nothing bothers HR in those particular areas in the past. But today now, HR ensure that, because we are talking about staff, we are talking about people that are coming to work, HR also ensures their safety. HR ensures that they are well protected in that environment in terms of physical harm and so many other areas that can basically harm anyone in the course of their work, in the course of their duties. And also this also will reduce litigation as well, because whatever happens to you in the work environment actually can also result into litigation and so on. Then of course, by putting all these measures in place and so on, you have better populations for the organization. HR, they are unpaid public relations experts or public relations personnel for organization, the way they actually handle the issue of their organization, the way they treat the staff, the way they make the place to be conducive for the people to work, the way they make the place to be environment that everybody works harmoniously. There's issue of diversity are taken care of. There's no issue of racist and issue that relates to gender imbalances and so on. So it gives a sort of better population to the organization. Then of course, higher employee retention and so on. You see some organizations, we've had recent discussion where we have organizations that people are just resigning, they don't have jobs, but they said, look, rather for me to be in this toxic environment, it's better for me to go home and so on. We conducted staff audit in one organization and so on. Last year, 60 people resigned and so on. And we entered into the place to conduct this audit. From on the audit table, we discovered a lot of things. In fact, somebody said, I'm earning 300 here. If I get a place for 150, I'm leaving. And what happened to those that have left in the past? They don't even get a job. They say they don't want to be under toxic situation perennially, because many of them, they started to develop some health challenges and so on because they are working in a place and so on. So HR has a role to play in this place. This issue has to do with corporate governance, and this also has a connotation of HR. Then, of course, the last one, they are reputational risk. Reputational risk, of course, is very, very critical today. So many organizations have lost reputation, and of course, there's no one want to deal with them. No organization want to have contact with them. No organization want to have business with them, and so on. So HR has very, very strong role to play in this area. Now, when you have very strong HR that basically cover this area, this reputational issue, reputational risk is corporate governance issue, but HR has a role to play to ensure that the reputation of that organization is protected, to see to it that whatever they promise, they ensure that they fulfill that promises, not only to the customers, but to the community. So all these are critical. So managing the strategic planning process. So what is the role of HR there? HR is charged here with supporting the management and the business in the area of strategic planning. Before, all these were not there. And we are saying that these are some of the things that are critical to HR now. And some of them say, oh, this is not my work, this is not my role, and so on. But whatever that happens to the organization happens to the HR as well. And HR it's like the centerpiece of the organization, because every human being working in that organization is basically connected to HR. So they are also now supporting top management and also supporting the business in terms of strategic planning, in terms of research, in terms of partnering, in terms of, in some cases, retention and acquisition of customers. Can you imagine what has HR got to do with all this? But that is the thing that is becoming reality now. And we have seen it, that there's no way we can say, okay, we just want to be issuing somebody is going on leave, somebody is going to travel, so on, allowance and so. So today we have a lot of role that relates to corporate governance within this confine of the organization. And now we have to bring both parties together. It's like when we want to bring university and industry together, we call it you and I. We want the university to know what the industry need. When they are producing graduates, what kind of graduates are they producing? So we want them to understand that this is what the industry needs. What you are teaching them in 1972 has no relevance for today. So that's what that's what we call the program You and I. Now we see that there is a need for us to bring CEO and the HR together for them to be able to see some of the corporate governance role that HR has to be playing for the sustainability of their businesses. So some unwritten responsibility of HR follows: to ensure the organization is conducting its business, its business in full compliance with national, international laws, regulations, and issues that pertain to its particular industry, as well as professional standard. These are unwritten responsibilities, but HR has to carry it out as a matter of compulsion now, and as a matter of necessity now, to ensure that the organization's business dealings are ethically sound and legally pristine. What do we have today? Violation of ethics all over the place. Integrity is in crisis in our country today. You have series of violation of ethics. So HR in organization will be a sound pivot for ethics and integrity in the organization, educating the entire organization, instituting practice that will ensure highest level of compliance. So these are some of the unwritten responsibilities. They are not laid down, but we have seen it that well-structured organization, HR has some of these roles to play now, as it were. So, and in managing this process, HR strategic planning responsibilities also include identifying, analyzing company-wide strategic issues. Strategic issues. Anywhere you see strategy, you are talking about top-level executive. Those in management, strategy means change, and so on. But it is very, very important that we see HR as playing this role, company-wide strategic issues, which suggest corporate strategic alternatives to top management. They bring a lot of suggestion. Okay, this is the strategy that the organization want to adopt. HR can say, oh, can we look at it in this way? Can we, this is alternative. This is another way of achieving this that you want to achieve, and so on. Then also they work as facilitators with business units to guide them through the strategic planning process. Other units, other business units of the organization, HR will walk through them. Okay, this is what we are planning for our staff. This is the way that we thought the direction of this organization should go. This is how we are going to achieve our strategic goals and intent, and so on. So HR will work as facilitators with other business units to ensure that the planning process are actually achieved. Then the issue of compensation management in organization. These are corporate governance issues. Basically, when you talk about welfare and well-being issue, the issue of direct financial compensation, these are issues that HR has a series of roles to play here. Indirect financial compensation, benefits to the staff, and so on. So these are corporate governance issues, but they are also issues that relate to corporate HR, as it were. So direct financial compensation, all these are issues that we have to look at. So corporate governance and other functions of HRM, at times they will come up, depending on the kind of organization, with issues that relates to procurement. What would the HR be bothered about in this area? Design of job analysis and design of that department. Human resource planning of that department. Recruitment and selection, placement, orientation of that department. Then when it comes to the issue of development, HR has it as responsibility to look at the area of career planning for staff, the training of workers, development of their executives, and also the development of the organization. HR also has it as duty when it comes to the issue of compensation, job evaluation, performance evaluation, wages and salaries, and so on, maintenance and motivation, employee well-being, social security, workers' participation, motivation, and so on. Then the issue of integration, also HR has a big role to play. These are corporate governance issues that relates to industrial relation, discipline, grievances, dispute resolution and settlement, collective bargaining. So all these are basically the areas that other functions that HR has to be bothered about. Now, integrating HR and corporate governance with business outcome. How do we integrate? How do we conduct this marriage ceremony and ensure that we achieve the best result in it? So human resourcing work itself, then shaping the working environment. That's a work that HR must themselves also tax themselves to be able to understand and carry out. Performance and the issue of accountability. It's very, very important. When it comes to performance accountability, it is in the purview of the HR to ensure that everybody actually is contributing their quota to the development of that organization. Then continuous learning. Every organization should be a learning organization. So HR brings all this together. So HR and corporate governance activities. So let's look at them holistically. I think we are going to be rounding up in another 5-10 minutes, but let's look at HR and corporate governance activities, how everything comes together in the face value, the HR role in corporate governance, issue that relates to cultural, geographic, political, social, economic, technological, global issue. So all this has to be looked into. And we have all this as the role that HR will play, especially that relates to corporate governance. The outside frame is issues that relates to corporate governance, political, social, technological, and so on, economic, geographic, cultural, and so on. The inside are the ones that are primary role of HR, but they have to come out at times to carry out some of these activities. They need to come out to carry out some of these activities. Evolution of HR management, we are talking about building leaders that is ethical. They must be able to take risk as well. Take risk, I mean, enter into some areas that are critical now, especially in the area of corporate governance, and bring out some decisive solution to some of the problems of the organization, develop staff, and create trust among the staff. So all these comes together to form the alliance of corporate governance and also the HR. Corporate governance strategic partners, mission-oriented strategic planner, and so on. Then functional expert knows HR principle. Also, today, HR are customer-oriented. They must apply business and knowledge, manages resources effectively. They are employee advocate, value diversity, resolve conflict, communicate well, respect others, and so on. Then issue that relates to focus on individual, manages change, future orientation, coach team relationship. All these are issues that mixes well with HR and corporate governance. So you put all this together, these are the areas that are very, very critical for HR to be able to understand how does all this bring themselves together. It's basically an HR issue, but these are basically issues that relates to corporate governance. Regulation is corporate governance issue. Come to regulators, regulating industry like finance, insurance, every area, even drug and food and so on, regulation and so on. Transparency issue. This is corporate governance issue, but HR must basically be on top of this game. Requirements for their production, for their productivity, law that relates to law, that relates to rules, that relates to policies. So all these issues, especially that relates to compliance system in organization, they are corporate governance issues, but HR has a role to play in all this. Final word is call to action. Call to action, like a system which is an entity with interrelated parts. As an HR director, executive personnel, you are vital to ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements, welfare, well-being of the staff, and all issues on corporate governance as a unit or subsystem. So you have this role to play. Initially, this role might not make any sense to anybody, but today now, because of the issues that relates to corporate governance and area that HR has to basically be aware of for the purpose of buy-in and sustainability, it is very, very important that HR understand some of these components and move into this area and help the organization to be sustainable. Most of the organizations that are not sustainable, while the HR are able to take responsibility for the purpose of structure, procedure, policies, and so on, those organizations might still be standing today. And we can list so many organizations that have actually gone down the drain because there is no one that is standing to ensure compliance with some of the structural issues that relates to compliance and so on. So it is very, very important that HR stands up now and see that we do all this and add all this to our purview. final words. Therefore, be determined to do your part to support and to institutional development and promote the efficiency of your company's.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Dr. Femi. Thank you so
Yes.
much. That was really insightful. As the session was in progress, a couple of questions came in. I'll read them one
Wow.
after the other so that you can do justice to them. The first
No
question
problem.
is from one of my ogas, Adeyemi Ajayi, and he says, who should conduct the confirmation appraisal of an executive director?
Okay. Who is the executive directors? Their confirmation appraisal is done by the MD. It is the MD that does that. It is the MD that, especially, you know, they report to the MD. They report to the MD. Okay, Mr. Prof. Adeyemi Ajayi, he just left me in Kano. He just left me in Kano. He left me alone. We are together here.
No,
All right, so it is the MD that basically appraises the top executives in the organization. It is the duty of the MD to do that. Yes.
All right. The next question from Professor Adeyemi Ajayi says, who should plan for new board members' orientation, HR or the board secretariat, sir?
It is basically, usually it is the company secretary that plans for the board and so on. But the training aspect, the company secretary, like we work with many of them, they may not know who is good in this area of training and that. So it is the HR, because HR has part of the duty of the HR is training and so on, training and development of the staff. So before it is the company that does that. But today now there is a need to consult widely, especially with HR, who knows the trainers, who is versed in this. Because you can see somebody will bring a trainer that has no business with the area that you are bringing the person to come and take. Of course, it is the company secretary that will do it, but today we are saying that they must do it in liaison with the HR, because of the fact that HR knows a series of trainers. It knows the competence of the trainers. It has a list of the trainers who can do what, especially in the area of board, in the area that relates to yes, board related training. So HR understands who can do what training and so on. So, but you have, in some cases, you have your company secretary. What he does is to prepare the material for the board, the paper, the minute, and so on. But when it comes to the training aspect, he may not know who can do a particular kind of training, excepting in some cases where he's also vast in that area. Okay?
Okay, a similar question, but I will ask it all the same, sir. Question is it mandatory for the board of directors to undergo training on an annual basis? Who is responsible for board's training plan and execution?
Okay, yes, I've said it, that Code of Corporate Governance say that the board has to be trained on by annual basis, and they have to be evaluated on annual basis by internal person within that organization, maybe company secretary that understands and so on, or whoever that within, but externally facilitated once in 2 years. That is what the Code of Corporate Governance says.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
So that is question,
what is the difference between board evaluation and corporate governance evaluation, sir?
Okay, there are two different things. Board evaluation, like the name suggests, is to evaluate the board. And there are a series of things that we evaluate. What we evaluate in the board, we evaluate the board itself, we evaluate individual directors, we evaluate even the company secretary, we evaluate the quality of the meeting and so on. We evaluate, so in fact, when we list out what we evaluate, is about 40 items that we evaluate. But when it comes to corporate governance evaluation, it is for the whole organization to see if this organization is actually carrying out at every stage of the organization corporate governance, if there is structure in place, if there is audit in place, if there's check and balance in place and so on. So it's different. The corporate governance is for the whole organization. Board evaluation is for the board alone. It's for the board alone. It's for the board, to performance of the board, to see that the board is actually carrying out the mandate. There is no way you can have a man without date. Mandate of the board to carry out their, are they carrying out the mandate of the board? Are they carrying out what the code of corporate governance say that the board should be doing? Are they carrying out what the general principle application says that board should be doing? So it is appraised in that particular area. Then it is different from corporate governance appraisal or audit. It's different. It's for the whole organization.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We have a question from one of my organs here. And Madam Bola Onime says, where is the handshake between HR and the company secretariat in relation to the acts and expectations from the board? Okay. Now, when the board is to meet and so on, HR has a lot of role to play. One, the meeting room, who is going to be responsible for food, for catering services, for other things that the board will need, who is going to duplicate the papers in case the board is still like a paper. Of course, most boards are now paperless, but if the board is still using paper, printing out minutes, printing out some of those things, it is the HR that does all those. So company secretary works with HR in that particular order to ensure that in a synergistic way, to ensure that they have a smooth board meeting. And so there's no way company secretary can do everything on his or her own. So he has to liaise with HR, in some cases admin, to ensure that everything works together for them to be able to achieve the goal of having a seamless meeting. We have another question from Madam Francisca Funlayo. She says here, and I like the question too, can HR also be the secretary to a board? HR? Can HR be the secretary to the board? Yes, in the absence of company secretary. Like, for instance, now, I'm having a board meeting on coming Friday now. The company does not have a company secretary. It is the HR that is acting as company secretary. All that we need to do is to make the HR to see what that role entails, what he or she needs to do to be able to carry out that function. If it is not a requirement in that industry that you must, as a matter of compulsion, have company secretary, then you can have HR to act in that order. And of course, we have series of places that HR actually is acting in that particular order to put up the minutes of the meeting, to put up the stage for the meeting, to ensure that the preparation of the meeting, adequate space is available, feeding and so on, and the allowances of the board and so on, remuneration of the board. It is the HR role in some cases when there is no company secretary in place in that organization, especially medium scale organizations. Yes. Thank you so much, Doc. Yes. Another question here says, should HR prepare a report for the board of directors? If yes, what should be the content of HR's report to the board of directors? The HR has its own, there are two issues here now. Is it a board paper or just HR report? Is it a board report or HR report? If it is HR report, you will submit it to the CEO of the organization. But if it is a board report, it is basically done by the company secretary, excepting in the situation where there's no company secretary, then the HR will prepare the report. And majorly the report is the minute of the meeting and so on.
or when you come to a situation where the CEO has to give a report of his stewardship, it is the CEO that will give the report. So that question goes in two ways. So maybe the person can clarify. All right.
Okay. We have another question here, sir. Doc,
Yes.
the question says that you mentioned 8 roles of HR at some point. And
Yes.
as it stands today, the company secretary carries out all the duties.
Yes, the company secretary carries out all the duties. We are saying that there is no way now that in any organization now, one office like company secretary office can carry out the whole of these duties. So in some cases, HR comes into play. Like for instance, you are talking about usage of the hall, you are talking about feeding and so on. Of course, that one will be left for HR. And some of the issues that relates to administrative issues there, like remuneration and some of those issues and so on. So I listed those because today now, HR is now playing in that arena, unlike before, where you don't see HR in that particular area. Now you are now seeing HR in that area. There are corporate governance areas, and HR also has a role as official of the organization. The same way, company secretary is also official of the organization. So he or she has a role to play in that particular area, especially when you have you are in a matured environment where these jobs are actually distributed and everybody has their own part to play in that particular order, because they are governance issue. Governance is not left to anybody now. Governance is not left to of course, you say corporate company secretaries and so on, they talk about governance now and so on, but it's not left to company secretaries now. It is left for every officer of the organization. Even the accountant now has to play some role in ensuring that there is compliance in the area of corporate governance now and so on. So there is and what is the root of corporate governance? Is sharing. When you go to look at the root of the word corporate governance, it's about sharing roles, sharing responsibilities. One day I went to look at the root of the corporate governance. It's about sharing roles, sharing responsibilities, sharing experiences, and sharing works within the organization. Yes.
Thank you so much. If you like to ask your question or get a clarification from Doc, if you raise your hand, to be able to take 2 or 3 live questions. Meanwhile, while we wait, if we get 1 or 2 people to raise their hands, a question here says, how does one convince the CEO of an organization to have a formally constituted board?
Yes, you know, you and I were in a place recently where we constituted a board. How did you convince that CEO? We were speaking in a program, and he felt that, oh, he needed this. Oh, I think I need to have a board. Then he invited us. Then we constituted a board for the organization and so on. How do you know organization that is ready for board? If you are small, you may not be bothered about board. But the moment you started to grow, then you need a board. You need a board for so many reasons. One, for reputational reason. Then 2, in some cases, you cannot even attract donor agency fund. You cannot attract a foreign direct investment fund if you don't have a board in place. You want to remain small, you can remain small. But if you want to grow, then you must have a board. No foreign investor will relate or deal with organization that does not have a board in place. When you have a board in place, they believe that you have a corporate governance structure in place. The first level of corporate governance is for you to have a board in place. And if you don't have it, nobody will deal with you. Nobody deals with only one man. It's not possible. And that's why the law talks about separability of human being from their business and so on. But the problem with us in our own case is that we don't want to separate ourselves from our business because we are endemically self-centered people. So that's our problem. And today now we are advising organizations, if you want to grow, then of course you must expand your tentacles. You must bring in board. And some of the boards that we have constituted recently, it is because they want to grow, they want to expand, they want to bring investors to the business and so on. One, we had a meeting sometimes ago, they are looking for investors and so on. The first requirement the investor asks is that, do you have a board? So we have to quickly constitute a board for them, and they have a lot of dollar investment now because they have a board in place and so on. All right.
Okay. One or two more questions, and we call it a wrap. I like this particular question. It says, what are the key competencies that HR should develop to undertake these roles and achieve their objectives?
So he has to develop a corporate skill. He has to develop corporate skill. He has to develop strategic skill. Then, of course, he can do it on his own. He can go and study the issues that relate to corporate governance. He can sit down on his own and look at corporate governance as a whole. And I've said that the reason why you have several organizations at the burial ground now is because they don't have structure in place. I think I said it in one program. I myself, my humble self, I've asked Dangote this question face to face. I've asked Dangote this question. I say, success without successor is suicidal. I say, Mr. Dangote, after you, what next? I asked him this question, though he said it was Joseph Makoju that will answer me. Joseph Makoju answered, of course, I was not 100% satisfied and so on. But in any case, at least he said they are doing something about it and so on. Because you see a lot of businesses now, if the owner, anything happens to the owner, that is the end of the business because there is no structure in place. So how do the HR see all this? HR will ensure that wherever that he or she is, there is a structure in place. There is succession planning in place. I want to say without any contradiction that it is the role of corporate governance to put in succession planning in organization. And what is succession planning? It's a corporate governance issue. It's a corporate governance issue, basically. It is to ensure sustainability of that business. It's to ensure that even if somebody died, if somebody is not alive, that business continues to go. It is the role of the HR to ensure that there's succession. And also, there is the need for also HR to learn the rudiments of key succession issues, especially now. It is very, very important. So when succession planning are in place, there is no fear because three things are very, very pertinent and they are imminent. One, death is imminent. Two, retirement. Then the third one is that somebody can resign and go. Somebody can leave that job. So who is going to take the position of that person? It's a corporate governance issue. And also HR must ensure that they understand the components and complexities of issues that relates to succession. It's part of the structure that the organization has to build. So HR must basically understand how this works and so on. And of course, you see, I discovered that from my research, the 10 oldest companies in the world, 4 of them are in Japan. They are 1,500 years and they are still running. What is making them to be running? They have strong culture of human resource in place who put in structure of succession. And that is just what I found out. Over 1,500 years. Don't forget that we don't have company of 100 years old in Nigeria. Don't forget. The oldest company in Nigeria as at this morning is Wema Bank. That's about maybe about 69, 70 years or so. I don't know. Of course, I think, yes, around that age. Around that range, you know. So, I mean, it's unbelievable that a country that is about 6,000 years, we don't have a company of 100 years old. So this is a country that is like that, we don't have. So what is the issue? It is HR. HR has a role to play in that particular area to ensure sustainability. First Bank, First Bank is not an indigenous company in Nigeria. It came from UK, Barclays Bank and so on. So I'm talking about indigenous company in Nigeria. So the other day, this hotel, Airport Hotel was celebrating 80th anniversary. I went there, I went to ask questions. I got to know that it's one young Briton that started it. A 26-year-old Briton started it. Eleganza is not the oldest company in Nigeria. It's not up to 100 years. Alabuku is not a Nigerian company. It's on Apapa Oshodi Expressway. It's not a Nigerian company at all. It's not.
Thank you so much, Doc. Just to add one or two things with respect
to HR has a role to play in all this. So sustainability, longevity of the business and corporate structure, it is very, very critical for HR to play this role. Nobody will play it except in HR. Yes, what else again? No, let's hear.
So just to add, based on what you have taught us tonight, some of the competencies HR must have to be able to help drive corporate governance include some basic legal knowledge, ethical decision-making, risk management, Doc mentioned that. Also understanding of regulatory requirements, Doc also mentioned that. Then ability to foster a culture of integrity and also compliance. And HR needs some of these, if not all these, to help. We'll just take one or two more questions and then we call it a wrap. Actually, we'll take just one more question because time is up. And I'll take that question from one of my ogas, Kelvin Ogeleya, and he says, once a board is set up, must it reflect on the Corporate Affairs Commission document, CAC document?
Yes, absolutely. You remember that if there is any case that happened in any organization, first of all, they go and look for who are the directors of that organization. You can set up in America, this is how they do it. They set up board and they now set up supervisory board. The supervisory board don't appear at their corporate affairs agency. All right. So it is only the people that they put their name at the time they are registering the business. So there is no way you register a company and the names of the directors will not be listed for Corporate Affairs Commission. Even when you are changing the directors, you must write officially to the Corporate Affairs Commission that you are removing this name, you are adding this name. These are very, very critical issues in corporate governance. So you must be seen to be open, to be transparent in all that you are doing in your dealings. So the list of your directors will have to be deposited at the Corporate Affairs Commission. And why do we say this? It is because if there is any problem, the Corporate Affairs Commission know who to call, knows who are the directors of a particular company and so on. I was at Kirikiri one day to see that. I went to see what do you call it, a client there, to see that a number of directors are in Kirikiri because their name appear on the letterhead of a organization that has scammed other people. Some people, they tell me that the reason why they are there is because their name appeared on the letterhead. I remember when I was at the Institute of Directors, there is a program I was running, company direction course. One of the courses is directors and the law. When the directors comes, I will now tell them that I just put this name, this course title for you guys to come to this place. The real title of this course is how to save director from going to prison. That's the real title of, yes, to ensure that you tell them all the liabilities involved in making your name to appear. If you know that these people, they are not ethical, they are not honest, they lack integrity, you have no business with them. So the name goes to the Corporate Affairs Commission. It is deposited there for the purpose of record and for the purpose of corporate governance. So it is very, very important. The name.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much. On a lighter but serious note, what do you have to say about boards that they exist, the wife, sister, brother, children, and they may be bearing different names sometimes? What do you have to say to those kind of boards? Are they really?
The Code of Corporate Governance says, in a very clear terms, the Code of Corporate Governance says that you must not be more than 2 family members in any board, as a matter of compulsion and as a matter of necessity. You cannot have more than 2 family members in any board. That's what the code says. So you can have companies, you can have a group of companies and so on. But when you are setting up a board for a particular company, 2 members of the family may be there, but there may not be more. You can't have more than 2 members of the same family in any board, and so on. And some of these things also, there are corporate governance issues, because we talk about conflict of interest and some of those things. When you now put your wife, put your child, put or this and that. In corporate governance, we don't basically see it as something that is good and advisable. So we advise people based on what the code say. The code say you cannot have more than 2 members of the same family in any board.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Yes.
Femi Mosaku Johnson, all the way from the ancient city of Kano for tonight. We reached out to you, you honored us. We pray that God will bless you and that God will give you even greater success and accomplishments even before the year runs out. Ladies and gentlemen, you know who to talk to if you need any support with respect to corporate governance and allied matters. It has been great hosting you tonight. I celebrate everyone who joined tonight, including our HR leaders and veterans, HR colleagues, friends, professionals, and associates. Please, let's get some rest and let's have a productive week. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.